a great inspiration for all of us. With much delight, I invite Dr. P Ajayakumar, the Pro Vice Chancellor of our university, to deliver the keynote address.
Thank you, sir, very much for the introduction. Respected Principal, Dr. V.Y. Dasapan, the organizers of this international seminar, that is T.K. Santosh Kumar, and the Vice Chairman of Higher Education Council, Dr. Rajan Gurukal, our Member of Parliament, Dr. Shashi Tharoor, who has inaugurated this seminar, dear participants, teachers and students. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to attend this particular seminar because we have been witnessing innumerable discussions, debates, seminars and lecture series on COVID-19 and its impact on our society, our culture, our economy, education system, and so on. This is yet another conference of this sort, and I hope that this will bring about a lot of insights and wonderful ideas in combating COVID and in facing problems that may arise in future. It is a very important fact that COVID-19 is not just an ordinary epidemic, or it is not an issue related to health alone. It has larger dimensions, and its impact is not just on the health sector, but on all walks of life. And education is only one of the areas heavily affected by COVID-19. So I think just like post-colonialism and post-modernism, another important term is going to be in circulation, and that is post-COVID era, post-COVID-19 era. And when we think about such a term, we understand that the term post-COVID refers to the moment from which the world was affected by COVID and the time that is going to come when the impact of COVID still remains in the world. So it will be a long period because the impact of COVID is going to remain for a longer period of time than is expected by majority of us. So post-COVID-19 period is certainly a challenging period. It will be a challenging period for all of us, for the government, for the educationists, for the economists, for everybody. It will be a challenging period. So I think we will be able to discuss certain specific experiences related to COVID period, or we can say from now onwards, the post-COVID period. In the post-COVID period, what is the kind of, or what are the kinds of changes that are going to happen? And how can we approach this particular experience? These are the two things that I would like to focus on in this small lecture. We know that infected by COVID-19 and unsettled by this small microorganism which is not visible with the bare naked eye, human civilization has revealed once again that it is vulnerable to attacks and is prone to such total encroachments from the non-human world. We know that human beings were very proud of their supremacy in this world, their hegemony over other animals, other organisms in this world. But now we have realized to a certain extent that our invincibility and our pride is no more unchallengeable. It has already been challenged by a small microorganism which cannot even be seen by our eyes. So some of the wild dreams and the exaggerated versions of attacks portrayed in some of the Hollywood films that we have seen, where a wild creature, a huge creature, comes and destroys the cities and people and everything that we have constructed. We have seen several such dystopian films. So that was considered to be a wild dream, which will never happen. But that is happening in a totally different fashion, not by a wild animal or a huge animal, but by a small microorganism. So this is an attack on human civilization. This is an attack on human pride and human belief that they are supreme and that they cannot be defeated by others, any other creature in this world. So now what happens is that our confidence is slowly disappearing. Our pride is slowly disappearing. And our megalomaniac pretensions are slowly disappearing. The human beings are shut down within the four walls of their house in fear of or afraid of the invisible virus. That is the present situation. So we have to think about this particular situation while discussing the impact of COVID-19. Because the epidemic COVID-19 has opened up several questions on the hegemony of human beings over the universe. We have to find answers to those questions. We have to react to those questions, and we'll have to adjust our life in the light of those experiences. So we can say once again, I repeat, that COVID-19 is not just an epidemic. We can say Oscar Wilde humorously said in one of his plays that a certain person is not just a friend, but he is a friend and a half. And similarly, we can say COVID-19 is not just an epidemic, it is an epidemic and a half, because it has wide-ranging impacts, more than or better than, greater than any other epidemic that we have seen in the past. It has infected not only the human body, but also our whole life, its culture, its economy, everyday life, education, all kinds of practices that we follow in our day-to-day life. So you may be remembered of Shelley's famous poem, Ode to the West Wind. In that poem, he describes the west wind as a revolution. The west wind is an agent of revolution. So similarly, I think the COVID-19 is becoming an agent of transformation in this world. What are the kinds of transformations that are happening in this world? I would say number one is demystification. Demystification. What do you mean by demystification? Because we know that everybody knows that we live with several illusions. Our life is full of problems, so we live with several illusions, several belief systems, several practices that we consider will help us in the long run in our life, will protect us. But we find that those mystified belief systems and practices are being lost in the present because we are not admitted to any temple or any church or any divine location. We are not allowed to conduct our many ceremonies, marriages, and various other ceremonies that we usually conduct with a lot of fanfare. And so what happens is that our practices, the practices that we have been following for several years together, even centuries, has been discontinued all on a sudden with the emergence of COVID-19. So the mystifying practices, the so-called practices in which we blindly believed in, are being discontinued. And that is a sudden change. And we witness that the traditional belief systems and practices are being unsettled by this shocking experience of COVID-19. And that is a reality. And the mega events that we usually conduct gave way to simple, small ceremonies. We know that Narayana Guru usually says about the simplicity of living, the simplicity that is to be maintained in conducting our ceremonies, like marriages, for example. He said that only 12 people should attend a marriage. But now we know that just before COVID, about usually in marriages, 2,000, more than 2,000 people usually participate. We spend a lot of money for such extravaganza. But now what happens is that with the impact of COVID, marriage ceremonies have become very simple as visualized by Sri Narayana Guru. So we find that we can say that it may be a joke, but it is right that even Narayana Guru, the great social reformer, failed in implementing his ideas, but COVID-19 has succeeded in that. But at the same time, it is also true that several of our cultural practices have been controlled or stopped, or to a certain extent have been kept away or postponed by the agents. So we find that not only the marriage ceremonies, our day-to-day affairs, several practices that we follow in our day-to-day life has been stopped, either stopped or postponed or controlled, and being celebrated in a just namesake manner. So this is a great change that we find in the COVID-19 period. We understand that we can live without most of these things, most of these ceremonies, most of these extravagant expenses, and many such ceremonies that we usually give a lot of importance in our life. So we understand that they don't have that much of importance that we thought it had. So in that sense, it is a demystifying agent, an agent of demystification. Many of our belief systems have been demystified. The curtain of mystery that was hiding it, or that was around most of these experiences, is gone. It has been revealed. And another thing is that COVID-19 is considered to be a leveler. Usually there is a belief that death is a leveler because death comes to everybody. Everybody dies. If you are born, you will die. So it is considered to be a leveler. But COVID-19 is now considered to be a leveler because everybody, irrespective of their social status, their financial status, their differences in nation, region, religion, race, color, irrespective of all these things, everybody is affected by COVID. And so we find that there is no kind of discrimination. Everybody is at one level. And so it is considered to be a leveler in one sense. There is a kind of socialism, we can say, as far as COVID-19 is concerned. It doesn't discriminate. But at the same time, we find that the idea of globalization that we have been cherishing for long, the idea of globalization, which we thought that will change the whole world, will make this world a global village, one unit, devoid of any borders, devoid of any differences. That idea has been shot, challenged by COVID-19. Why? Because what we see now is that every nation is crossing its borders. Not only nations, even states are blocking the borders, and the movements between nation to nation, between states to state, from region to region, that is also being blocked. So we find the re-emergence of borders in the present, reassertion of the nation state, and I think the death of the idea of transnationalism, and that is being broken. So at one sense, at one level, COVID-19 succeeds in crossing the borders, affecting everybody irrespective of their status and differences. But at another level, it also succeeds in keeping people secluded in their own private domain, in their own nation, in their own state, in their own region. That is, they are not permitted to move out of their domain, private domain. The public life is affected. So we find that these are the very kind of experiences, often very opposing type of experiences that are happening in our society. And another important thing is, another big challenge that it has posed is to the world capitalism. Because now with the decline of the communist Soviet Union and the communist states in Europe, Eastern Europe, everybody has acclaimed capitalism as the only mode of development which is sustainable and the only kind of solution to our problems, the only pathway to development. It is considered to be the supreme kind of social system which will lead man to progress. But now capitalism is also being challenged. Now famous thinkers like Xavier has made a very important comment, a pertinent comment on the condition of capitalism in the post-COVID era. And what is that? He says that consumer capitalism have been heavily damaged by COVID-19. We know that our economy has been heavily affected by COVID-19. So consumer capitalism have been heavily damaged. And the very idea of capitalist state as a model state, a development model, is being questioned. Because we have seen in the big capitalist countries like USA or in UK, in Spain, etc., people being neglected by the government. The kind of medical support is not given properly. And medical treatment costs lots of money, which cannot be afforded by ordinary people. People losing their work all on a sudden, becoming jobless all on a sudden. And in India, we have found that migrant workers walking kilometers and kilometers to their native land, dying, some of them dying in that process. So this is a very sorry plight, and this is a clear evidence of the failure of capitalism as a kind of savior that it thought to be. The plight of migrant workers reveals the fact that the kind of model, capitalist model that we have been projecting so far is not at all suitable for our situation, at least in this period of crisis. It failed in overcoming the crisis. And it showed a kind of heartless social system. And Zizek observes that the capitalism in the post-COVID period will not be the same as it was in the pre-COVID period. In the post-COVID period, our social system is also going to change. We are more and more aware of the health system being controlled by, that aware of the importance of the health system being controlled by the government, the public. We need such a system because only such a system can support the lowest people, the poor people, people who do not have money. So we have to keep the health and education under government control at least. So the importance of such a system is being revealed through this crisis. Another area that has been affected by COVID is the idea of elitism. Elitism is an idea that believes that the elite in a society will always remain protected. They will always be unaffected by whatever happens in the world. And even if the whole world is shaken, the elite will remain protected and safe. But that kind of idea has also been shaken by COVID-19. At present, we find that everybody is affected by COVID. Even Amitabh Bachchan is being affected by COVID. So no, the elitism, the idea of elitism is also being challenged. So the crisis created by COVID-19 has opened up our eyes. It has transformed our perspectives. It has helped in generating new ways of looking at our own experiences. I think that is one of the important impacts of COVID that we should keep in mind. And moreover, more than all that, what is important is that COVID-19 has helped us to understand the interrelatedness of things. And what is meant by interrelatedness of things? We have been complaining about the new generation involving in their own activities. They are actually bound to themselves, their personal world. They remain in their personal world through social media and all those things. Even though they contact with the other world, it is only through the virtual means that they connect with the outside world. Other than that, they are most often brooding over their own personal experiences and living in a personal world. That is the kind of feeling that we have got. But COVID-19 has actually triggered the idea of interrelatedness because it makes us understand that our life is connected with the life of others. My life is connected with the people who are around me. And nationally also, we find that our life is connected with the people in another nation because even though COVID-19 started in China, began to spread in China, it spread to the whole world, almost all parts of the world. So the interrelatedness of things has been reasserted by COVID-19. And it leads us to think that all phenomena in this world, not only life, all phenomena in this world are interconnected. And we find that COVID-19 leaves no stone unturned to prove that our independence is highly conditioned and rigid. We believe that we are independent, we are free, but it is highly conditioned. It is very rigid. Our movements are connected with the movements of many others, all other people. Our life is tied up with the life of other living beings, including microorganisms. So this kind of thought that originates from our present experience leads us to think that we have to protect the whole environment if we have to protect ourselves. We cannot protect ourselves just by hiding ourselves in a safe uh, location. But we can protect ourselves by protecting the whole environment, because we are very much connected with the society, with the world, with the whole environment. So the idea of protecting the environment, the idea of our life being connected with other lives means not only the life of the human beings, but also the life of all living organisms, including microorganisms. That is the kind of revelation, very important revelation that we should attain from this particular experience. Because COVID-19 came at a time when human beings were more and more bound towards their own, limited to their own world. And so this idea or this kind of revelation that we have got about our interconnected life, the interconnectedness of our life is extremely important. And I think we should develop our strategies for future development. We should develop strategies for our own life, even educational strategies in developing curriculum, etc. We should develop all those things, keeping in mind the interconnectedness of things. So the kind of interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary, both are two different things, as rightly pointed out by Dr. Rajan Gurukul. The interdisciplinarity is certainly a sign of this interconnectedness. When we study botany, we should also learn about the environment, the importance of protecting the plants, not just the kind of cross-section of the plants, but how it is connected with our life, how it is connected with the environment, and how it is important to protect this environment, etc. So that interconnectedness has to be asserted even while designing curriculum. So our education system should also be streamlined in that fashion, giving experiences of interconnectedness, that is protecting our friend, our neighbor, and our people who are around us. That should be, that kind of an experience should be generated by our education system. We know that when we come to the college, our parents and our children and even our teachers most often think that college is meant for teaching Shakespeare and Shelley, and also to teach certain theories of physics or chemistry, etc. That is our feeling. And we always focus on learning such things. But what about the kind of strategies for life? From where do we get the strategies of life? We have to learn that also, which is more important than the theories that we learn from the college, from the educational institutions. Because education should teach a student how to live, how to behave to others, how to tackle problems in our life, how to manage other people. And this is a very important idea, even more important idea than the kind of theories that we learn in our textbooks. So our curriculum should be thoroughly revised and designed in such a way to make our children better citizens, better human beings. And that is again one of the teachings of COVID-19 as far as our educational system is concerned. So I think COVID-19 is full of such lessons that we have to learn, and lessons that we have to keep in mind while designing our future life. And I hope this seminar will open up discussions on several of these areas and will be fruitful in tackling the kind of problems that may shoot up in future. So I think the post-COVID period will be full of challenges, and we have to devise measures to face those challenges through discussions and debates of the sort which are based on our true experiences. And that is extremely important. We don't have to base our thought on any particular idea, but on real experiences of life. What do we really experience? And this is a really historical moment as far as we are concerned. We live in this particular period, and we have never witnessed a similar experience before in our life, even though the Black Deaths in the 13th, 14th century and the Spanish flu in the early part of 20th century. We have heard of those things. We have never witnessed it because we were not born at that time. Now this is another historic experience that we are witnessing. We may not realize the importance of it now, but after many years, this will be counted as a very important challenge faced by humanity. So we should use this opportunity to devise methods for future life, how to tackle the problems of future life. And I hope the seminar will do that. So I congratulate the organizers for planning and executing an excellent seminar of this sort. And I believe that all the sessions that are going to come will be fruitful and useful for you. And I also hope that you will use those ideas for, I think maybe by publishing or through some other method, you will use these ideas for helping our government as well as other bodies to help them to tackle the challenges posed by COVID-19. And once again, I wish all success to this seminar, and thank you all for inviting me and listening to me during these half an hour. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure listening to you, sir. I place on record our indebtedness to Dr. P Ajayakumar for generously accepting our invitation to the keynote speaker on the first day of the international webinar. Thank you very much, sir. Now we take a short break to refresh ourselves and back in 10 minutes time. Thank you.